The envelope sat on the table, cream-colored and sealed. Inside was something that would change lives, end careers, and reveal a truth no one in that restaurant could have imagined. But before we get there, we need to go back to the moment it all began, when a tired old man in worn clothes walked through those doors, and a waitress made the worst mistake of her life. The Golden Crest restaurant sits on the corner of Maple and Fifth, all polished brass fixtures and white tablecloths that cost more to clean than most people spend on groceries. It's the kind of place where businessmen seal deals over $50 steaks, where engagement rings emerge from jacket pockets, where being seen matters almost as much as the food itself. On this particular Tuesday afternoon, the lunch rush has just ended. Sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the crystal glasses and making them sparkle like diamonds. The air smells of fresh bread, expensive wine, and money. That's when Samuel Hayes walks in. He moves slowly, the way men in their 70s move when their knees remember every hard year they've lived. His jacket, once black, now faded to charcoal gray, hangs loose on his frame. The collar is frayed. One elbow shows the telltale shine of fabric worn thin. His shoes are clean but cracked with age, the kind of shoes that have walked too many miles on too many hard surfaces. But it's his eyes that tell the real story. Deep brown, weathered at the corners, holding something quiet and unshakable. Dignity that decades of life haven't managed to break. Samuel pauses just inside the door, adjusting to the cool air conditioning after the heat of the street. He looks around with the careful attention of a man who knows he's being watched, who's learned to read a room before fully entering it. What he doesn't know is that in the next 60 seconds, everything is about to go terribly wrong. Behind the hostess stand, Madison Pierce checks her reflection in the decorative mirror. 26 years old, blonde hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, makeup applied with the precision of someone who knows cameras are everywhere, because at the Golden Crest, influencers and local celebrities are regular customers, and you never know who might end up in the background of someone's Instagram story. Madison has worked here for 3 years. She knows the regulars by name, remembers drink orders, laughs at mediocre jokes when the tips are good. She's saving for a better apartment, a better car, a better life than the one she was born into, and she's learned that in a place like this, image is everything. Her eyes land on Samuel, and her expression shifts. It's subtle, the slight tightening around her mouth, the way her shoulders square, but it's there. "Excuse me, sir, can I help you with something?" Her tone is professional, but there's something underneath it, something cold. Samuel recognizes it immediately. He's heard versions of this voice his entire life. "Good afternoon, miss. I'd like a table for lunch, please." His voice is deep, measured, with the careful diction of a man who's spent a lifetime proving he belongs in rooms that didn't want him. Madison's eyes travel from his worn jacket to his weathered shoes and back again. She glances toward the dining room where the remaining lunch customers, all well-dressed, all white, eat their meals in comfortable affluence. "I'm sorry, but we're actually fully booked right now." Samuel follows her gaze. He counts 5 empty tables. 6 if you include the 4 top by the window where a busboy is just finishing clearing plates. "I see several open tables. Those are reserved for people with reservations." "I understand. Do I need a reservation?" "Your website says walk-ins are welcome for lunch service." There's a pause. Madison's jaw tightens. She's not used to being challenged, especially not by someone who looks like they wandered in from the bus stop 3 blocks away. "Look, sir, I don't think this is really your kind of place. There's a diner 2 streets over, much more affordable. You'd probably be more comfortable there." The words hang in the air like smoke. Around them, the restaurant continues its quiet hum. Soft jazz plays through hidden speakers. In the kitchen, plates clink. At table 7, a couple laughs at something on a phone screen. But in this small space between the hostess stand and the door, something heavy and familiar settles over Samuel's shoulders. It's the weight of 1,000 moments just like this one. The weight of being seen as less than, of having doors closed, of being told you don't belong. He takes a slow breath. His hand, weathered and strong, tightens slightly on the strap of the worn leather messenger bag hanging from his shoulder. But Madison has no idea who she's just turned away, and what she's about to set in motion will make front-page news. "I'd prefer to eat here, if that's possible. I'm happy to wait for a table if necessary." His voice remains calm, but there's something in his eyes now, a flicker of disappointment that cuts deeper than anger ever could. Madison's face flushes. A manager is nearby, Daniel Chen, 38, 10 years in high-end hospitality, currently reviewing reservation logs at the bar. She knows she should call him over, let him handle this, but her pride won't let her back down. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We have dress code standards, and your website lists the dress code as smart casual. It makes no mention of requiring a jacket. I'm wearing clean slacks and a button-down shirt." He's right, and Madison knows it, but she's dug herself in now, and there's an audience. At table 11, an older white woman in pearls has stopped eating, fork suspended halfway to her mouth, watching. At table 4, a young couple has turned to look. "Look, I don't have time for this. Either leave voluntarily, or I'll have to call security." Samuel studies her face for a long moment. There's no anger in his expression, just a sadness that seems to age him 10 years in 10 seconds. I see. I'll be going, Ben. Have a good day. Miss returns slowly, with the careful dignity of someone who refuses to be rushed, refuses to show the hurt. As he reaches for the door handle, his messenger bag shifts, and something inside catches the light just for a moment. A flash of gold against leather. The woman in pearls at table 11 leans toward her companion, whispering urgently. The young couple at table 4 exchanges uncomfortable glances, and at the bar, manager Daniel Chen looks up from his paperwork, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm as he realizes what's happening. Madison, what's going on? But the door is already closing behind Samuel Hayes. The man who was just denied service walks out into the afternoon sunlight, and Madison turns back to her podium, already pulling out her phone to text her roommate about the awkward situation she just handled. She has no idea that in exactly 4 hours her entire life is going to fall apart, and it starts with a phone call that's already being made. 3 blocks away, Samuel Hayes sits on a bench in Riverside Park. The afternoon sun filters through oak trees, dappling the pavement with shifting shadows. He doesn't eat, his appetite has vanished, but he stays there anyway, watching the river flow past, watching people jog and walk dogs and push strollers. He reaches into his messenger bag and pulls out a leather-bound journal, worn smooth by decades of handling. Inside are notes, sketches, observations. On today's page, he writes simply, Golden Crest Restaurant, Maple and 5th, 2:47 p.m. Then he closes the journal and sits in silence. What he doesn't do, what he's learned through 73 years not to do, is react with anger. Anger burns hot and fast and consumes the person who holds it. Samuel Hayes has learned patience, and he's learned that the truth, eventually, always surfaces. And the truth about who Samuel really is, that's about to explode. Back at the Golden Crest, the afternoon shift continues. Madison works through her routine, seating the 3:30 reservations, smiling, making small talk, pretending the interaction with the old man never happened. But Daniel Chen hasn't forgotten. He approaches the hostess stand during a quiet moment, his expression carefully neutral in the way managers master when they're about to have a difficult conversation. Madison, can we talk for a moment? In the office. Sure. But can it wait? I've got a 6-top coming in at 4. Now please. There's steel in his voice that wasn't there before. Madison's stomach tightens, but she follows him past the kitchen, down the narrow hallway to the cramped office that smells like coffee and printer toner. Daniel closes the door. He doesn't sit, neither does she. The gentleman you turned away earlier, what exactly happened? He wasn't appropriately dressed. I explained our standards, and he left. It wasn't a big deal. Mrs. Patterson from table 11 called me over after you left the floor. She said it looked like you refused service based on, how did she put it? The color of his skin and the state of his clothes. Madison's face goes hot. Mrs. Patterson is a regular old money, big tips friends with the owner. That's not what happened. He looked homeless. Daniel, I was protecting the restaurant's image. You're always saying we need to maintain standards. Our dress code is smart, casual. You said he was wearing slacks and a button-down. They were old and worn. He looked like he couldn't afford. That's not your call to make. Unless someone is violating health codes or being disruptive, we serve them. That's not just restaurant policy, that's the law. There's a silence. Madison's hands are trembling now, but it's not from shame, it's from indignation. In her mind, she did her job. She protected the brand. She made a judgment call. So I'm supposed to just let anyone walk in off the street, even if they might make other customers uncomfortable. He was an elderly man looking for lunch. Madison, not a threat. But what Daniel doesn't know yet, what no one in that restaurant knows, is that the elderly man Madison turned away has already made 3 phone calls, and the wheels are in motion. The first call was to his granddaughter, Aisha, a civil rights attorney with a Georgetown law degree and a reputation for taking discrimination cases that others won't touch. The second call was to his former colleague, James Whitmore, now retired but still respected. It's still connected, still dangerous when motivated. The third call was to a journalist named Patricia Ellison, who's been covering social justice issues for the city paper for 15 years and knows a story when she hears one. By 4:30 p.m. Things are moving. Aisha Hayes sits in her downtown office, her laptop open, already drafting a formal complaint to the city's Human Rights Commission. Her jaw is set in a hard line that anyone who knows her recognizes as her fighting stance. Grandpa, I need you to tell me everything. Every word she said, exactly as she said it. And I need you to be honest. Were there really no tables available? Samuel recounts the interaction with the precision of someone trained to observe and remember. Because before he retired, before the decades of teaching and mentoring and building, Samuel Hayes spent 35 years as a federal judge. That's right. The man Madison turned away wasn't just an elderly black man in worn clothes. He was the Honorable Samuel Hayes, retired judge of the United States District Court, a man who'd presided over hundreds of cases, including 3 landmark civil rights decisions that changed state law. But on this Tuesday afternoon, dressed in his gardening clothes because he'd planned to stop by the community center after lunch, He was just another old black man who didn't look wealthy enough to deserve service, and when his identity becomes public, when the restaurant realizes exactly who they turned away, the fallout will be nuclear. At 5:15 p.m., Patricia Ellison, the journalist, arrives at the Golden Crest. She doesn't announce herself as press. She simply requests a table, is seated immediately despite her casual jeans and blazer, and orders a coffee. While she waits, she observes. She watches Madison at the hostess stand, polished professional, smiling at well-dressed customers. She watches the dynamic of the room, noting the demographics of the staff versus the clientele. She takes photos subtly, documenting. Then she asks her server, a young man named Marcus, if the restaurant has had any issues today. Issues? No. Pretty standard Tuesday. I heard there was an incident earlier. Something about a customer being refused service. Marcus glances toward the hostess stand, then leans in slightly. Oh, that. Yeah, Madison turned away this older black guy during lunch. Said we were full, but we weren't. Some of us thought it was messed up, but, not our place to say anything. Did you catch his name? The man who was turned away? No, but he looked like somebody's grandpa. Real dignified, the kind of old guy who holds doors for people. Made it worse. Honestly, in 3 hours, Marcus will see a photo on the news and realize that somebody's grandpa was actually one of the most respected judges in state history, and his quiet guilt will turn into something much louder by 6 p.m. The dinner service is starting. The Golden Crest transforms as it does every evening, lights slightly dimmed, candles lit on every table. The jazz music turned up just enough to create ambience. Madison's shift is almost over. She's thinking about going home, taking off her heels, ordering Thai food, and watching reality TV. She has no idea that her phone is about to explode at 6:23 p.m. Patricia Ellison's article goes live on the City Paper's website. Retired federal judge denied service at upscale restaurant. Discrimination or dress code. The article is measured, factual, devastating. It includes Samuel's credentials, Madison's alleged statements carefully sourced as according to witnesses, and photos of the Golden Crest's empty tables taken through the window at the time of the incident. It includes a quote from Samuel, "I've spent my career defending civil rights and holding institutions accountable. I never imagined that in 2026 I'd still be judged as unworthy of basic service because of how I look." Within 20 minutes, the article has been shared 4,000 times on social media. Within an hour, it's trending locally on X, formerly Twitter, with the hashtag Golden Crest discrimination. And Madison, she's still working the hostess stand, seating a party of 6, completely unaware that her face is about to be on every screen in the city. At 7:45 p.m., the restaurant's owner, Robert Callahan, calls Daniel Chen. Daniel steps into the office, closes the door, and emerges 8 minutes later looking like he's aged a year. He approaches Madison at the hostess stand. His face is pale. "Madison, I need you to come with me. Now, I'm in the middle of now." They go back to the office. This time Daniel's laptop is open on the desk, Patricia Ellison's article filling the screen. And there, embedded in the article, is a photo of Samuel Hayes, not the tired man in worn clothes, but an official portrait from his days on the bench, distinguished, powerful, wearing judicial robes, the American flag behind him. Madison stares at the screen. The color drains from her face. That's the same guy. That's Judge Samuel Hayes, retired federal judge. He presided over Richardson v. State Education Board, the case that integrated school funding. He's been honored by 3 governors. He has a building named after him at the law school. Madison sinks into a chair. Her hands are shaking now, but this time it's not indignation. It's pure fear. "I didn't know. How was I supposed to know who he was?" That's exactly the problem. Madison, you weren't supposed to need to know. You were supposed to treat him like any other customer, with basic dignity and respect. Outside the office, the dinner service continues, but whispers are starting. Someone showed the article to a server. That server showed someone else. Now phones are coming out. Articles being read in the kitchen between orders. At table 17. A couple who saw the article an hour ago recognizes the restaurant name. They quietly request their check and leave without finishing their meal. At table 9. Another customer calls over. "Daniel, is it true? Did your staff really turn away Judge Hayes?" Daniel's professional smile falters. He doesn't answer directly, can't legally, but his silence says enough. By 9 p.m. the restaurant will have 19 reservation cancellations for the coming week. By midnight, it will be 50. And this is only the beginning. At 8:30 p.m. Madison is sent home. Not fired, not yet, but removed from the floor while ownership and legal teams figure out how to handle the situation. She walks to her car in the employee lot, and her phone, which she finally checks, shows 63 notifications. Messages from friends. "Oh my God, is this your restaurant?" Messages from her mother. "Call me now." A text from her roommate. "You're on the news." She sits in her car and Googles her own name. The results make her stomach drop. Someone leaked her identity. There's a screenshot of her Facebook profile public, because she never bothered to change the privacy settings next to the article. Her full name, her photo, and below it, hundreds of comments. "People like her are why we still need to fight. Hope she loses her job. Racist trash." Some are worse. much worse. But the story is far from over, because tomorrow morning, Judge Samuel Hayes is going to do something that will change everything again. That night, Samuel Hayes sits in the living room of the modest home he's lived in for 42 years. It's the house where he raised 3 children after his wife died young, the house where he studied case law late into the night, where he wrote decisions that would affect thousands of lives, where he taught his grandchildren that justice is something you fight for, not something you assume. Aisha sits beside him, her laptop balanced on her knees, still working. Grandpa, we can file a formal discrimination complaint. We can pursue this legally. With your testimony and the witness statements I've already collected, this is an open and shut case. I know we can, but that's not what I want. Then what do you want? Samuel is quiet for a long moment, looking at his hands, the hands that signed verdicts, held gavels, comforted his daughters when their mother died, guided countless young lawyers through their first cases. I want to understand why she did it, and I want her to understand what she did. And the method he's about to use, the thing he's planning that no one expects, will force everyone involved to face uncomfortable truths. By Wednesday morning, the story has gone national. It's picked up by major news networks, debated on morning shows, dissected on social media. The Golden Crest's Yelp page is flooded with 1-star reviews. Their Instagram is overwhelmed with comments calling for boycotts. Robert Callahan, the owner, holds an emergency meeting with his management team at 7 a.m. before the restaurant even opens. We're facing a PR catastrophe. We've lost over 100 reservations. The mayor's office called. They want to pull their upcoming fundraiser from our private dining room. We need solutions, and we need them now. We need to issue a public apology. Fire Madison. Make it clear, this doesn't represent our values. Already drafted the statement. Legal is reviewing it now. Madison will be terminated today, effective immediately. There's a knock on the office door. One of the morning prep cooks leans in, looking uncomfortable. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see Mr. Callahan. Says it's urgent. It's Judge Hayes. The room goes silent. Robert and Daniel exchange glances, surprise, confusion, and something that might be fear. Judge Hayes is here, now at the front door. He's waiting. What happens in the next 15 minutes will determine whether the Golden Crest survives this scandal or closes forever. And what Samuel Hayes is carrying in his messenger bag will shock everyone. Robert Callahan walks through his own restaurant like a man approaching the gallows. His palms are sweating. His heart is racing. Behind him, Daniel follows, and behind Daniel, 2 other managers who insisted on witnessing whatever is about to happen. They find Samuel Hayes standing just inside the entrance, in almost the exact spot where he stood yesterday. This time, though, he's wearing a crisp navy suit, a pressed white shirt, a burgundy tie. He looks every inch the federal judge he was for 3.5 decades. But his expression is neutral and angry, not triumphant, just present. Judge Hayes, I'm Robert Callahan, the owner. I want to start by saying how deeply sorry. May we sit down? This may take a few minutes. Robert nods frantically, gesturing toward a table by the window. They sit, Samuel on one side, Robert and Daniel on the other. The power dynamic is clear. This is Samuel's courtroom now. Even without a bench or gavel, Samuel reaches into his messenger bag, the same worn leather bag from yesterday, and withdraws a folder. Inside are printed pages, photographs, handwritten notes. I want to be clear about why I'm here. I'm not interested in destroying your business. I'm not seeking financial compensation. I don't want anyone arrested or publicly shamed beyond what has already occurred. Robert exhales slightly, but Samuel raises a hand. What I want is change, real change. And I want to know that what happened to me won't happen to the next person. He slides one of the photographs across the table. It shows the Golden Crest's dining room from yesterday, the empty tables, the timestamp, the visible vacancy. Your hostess told me you were fully booked. This photo shows otherwise. She suggested I would be more comfortable at a diner 2 blocks away, a coded way of saying I didn't belong here. And when I questioned her, she threatened to call security. Robert looks at the photo, his face crumbling. Judge Hayes, there's no excuse for what happened. Madison will be terminated today. We're issuing a public apology. We'll do whatever. Firing one person doesn't fix a system. It just makes her a scapegoat. What training do your staff receive about implicit bias? About recognizing their own assumptions? What accountability structures exist? What does your employee handbook say about discrimination? Silence. Daniel shifts uncomfortably. We have a non-discrimination policy. It's in the handbook. Have your employees read it, signed it, been trained on what discrimination actually looks like in practice? More silence. And in that silence, the truth becomes clear. The Golden Crest, like so many establishments, had policies on paper but no real commitment to enforcing or teaching them. Yesterday, I wasn't treated poorly because your hostess is a bad person. I was treated poorly because she's operating in a system that taught her to equate worth with appearance, to judge humanity by clothing and skin color. She learned that somewhere, maybe from society, maybe from family, maybe from past employers, but she learned it, and your restaurant did nothing to unteach it. And what Samuel is about to propose is terms for resolution will require something far more difficult than a simple apology. Samuel, Slides another document across the table. It's typed, formal, detailed. These are my conditions for not pursuing formal legal action or endorsing the ongoing boycott. Robert picks up the document with trembling hands and begins to read. His eyes widen as he goes down the list. Mandatory bias training for all staff, front of house, back of house, management conducted by a certified civil rights organization. Not a 1-hour video. Real, facilitated, uncomfortable workshops. Revised employee handbook with clear, specific examples of discriminatory behavior and explicit consequences. Quarterly audits of seating practices, examining whether customers of different demographics are treated equally in wait times, table assignments, and service quality. Scholarship fund established in the name of civil rights, funded by the restaurant to support young people from underprivileged communities. Pursuing careers in hospitality. Public commitment to diversifying hiring practices, particularly in management positions. Community partnership with local organizations serving marginalized communities, including hosting quarterly community meals at no cost. Robert reads through the list twice. It's extensive. It's expensive. It will require ongoing effort, not a one-time fix. This is, Judge Hayes, this is a complete restructuring of how we operate. Yes, it is, because anything less is just performance. Anything less is firing one person and going back to business as usual, and business as usual is what led to yesterday. Robert looks at Daniel. Daniel looks at the document. Neither speaks for a long moment. Then Robert sets down the paper and meets Samuel's eyes. If we do this, all of this, will you make a public statement supporting us, asking people to give us a chance to do better? If you do this, and do it genuinely, I'll do more than that. I'll bring my family here for dinner. I'll recommend you to colleagues. I'll be your ambassador for change. But you have to actually change, not just say you will. But there's one more person who needs to face what happened. And what Samuel asks for next will be the hardest thing of all. Samuel reaches into his bag one more time and withdraws an envelope, the cream-colored envelope from the opening of our story. He places it on the table between them. There's one more condition. I want to speak with Madison, your hostess, privately, just the two of us. Robert's face goes pale. Judge Hayes, I don't think that's a good idea. Legally speaking, if she says something, I'm not recording. I'm not building a case. I'm trying to do something much harder than winning a lawsuit. I'm trying to create understanding. She's not here right now. We sent her home yesterday and told her not to come back until we'd figured out next steps. Then call her. Tell her I've requested a meeting. Tell her she doesn't have to come, but that I'd like the opportunity to speak with her face to face. Robert and Daniel exchange looks again, longer this time, communicating in the silent language of people who've worked together for years. Finally, Robert nods. I'll call her. 20 minutes later, Madison Pierce walks through the door of the Golden Crest for what she assumes will be the last time. Her eyes are red from crying. She's wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, the armor of someone who's given up on presentation. She looks younger than her 26 years, smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of public condemnation. She sees Samuel sitting at the table by the window, and she freezes. Samuel stands, a gesture of respect that seems to surprise her, and gestures to the chair across from him. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. Madison approaches slowly, like someone walking toward a firing squad. She sits on the edge of the chair, hands twisted in her lap, unable to meet his eyes. For a long moment, Samuel just looks at her. Not with anger, but with something more difficult to face. Calm assessment. Do you know why I asked to speak with you? To tell me what a terrible person I am? To make sure I understand what I did? No, I asked to speak with you because I want to understand why you did it. Madison's head snaps up, confusion crossing her face. Why does it matter? Because why is the difference between a person who's cruel and a person who's been taught to be cruel? And that difference determines whether change is possible. What Madison says in the next 5 minutes will reveal something about bias, fear, and the stories we tell ourselves to justify our actions. Madison is quiet for a long time. When she finally speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper. I thought I was protecting the restaurant. I thought if I let you sit down, other customers would be uncomfortable, would complain, would leave, and my job is to make sure people have a good experience, and I thought. Her voice breaks. She swipes at her eyes angrily. I thought I was doing the right thing, and I know how that sounds. I know how racist that sounds. But in my head, in that moment, I wasn't thinking about race. I was thinking about the dress code, about standards, about you. Were thinking about worth. Madison stops, looks up at him. You looked at me and made a judgment about my worth as a human being based on my clothing and my skin. You decided I didn't deserve the same access, the same respect, the same basic dignity as the people already seated. That's what bias does. It creates hierarchies of humanity. Some people belong, some people don't. I'm not a racist. I don't hate black people. I have black friends. I believe you. But racism isn't just hatred. It's also assumptions. It's treating someone differently without even realizing you're doing it. It's the voice in your head that said, he doesn't fit, and you never questioned where that voice came from. Madison covers her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. And Samuel, this man who was humiliated, dismissed, treated as less than, something remarkable. He reaches across the table and places a hand gently on her shoulder. The question now is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Madison lowers her hands. Her face is blotchy, her makeup ruined, but she finally looks him in the eye. I don't know. I don't know how to fix this. You start by acknowledging the harm. Then you learn. Then you do better. And when you mess up again, because you will, because we all do, you acknowledge it again, and you keep learning. That's all any of us can do. He slides the cream-colored envelope across the table. Madison stares at it. What is this? Open it. With shaking hands, Madison opens the envelope. Inside is a check not made out to Samuel, but to Madison, for $5,000. Below the check is a handwritten note. This is not a reward. This is an investment. Use this to educate yourself. Take courses on racial justice, on civil rights history, on implicit bias. Read books. Volunteer with organizations that serve marginalized communities. Learn what you were never taught. And when you're ready, teach others. S.H. Madison stares at the check like it's a live grenade. I can't accept this. Not after what I did to you. You can, and you will, because punishment alone doesn't create change. Education does. Empathy does. Understanding does. I'm giving you the chance to become someone different, someone better. Don't waste it. And in this moment, something shifts. Not just for Madison, but for everyone watching this story unfold. 3 days later, the Golden Crest holds a press conference. Robert Callahan stands at a podium, with Daniel Chen beside him, with staff members behind him including Marcus, the server who witnessed the original incident, and standing at the far end, slightly apart but present, is Samuel Hayes. Robert reads from a prepared statement, but his voice carries genuine emotion. What happened in our restaurant was inexcusable. We failed to treat a guest with basic dignity and respect, but Judge Hayes has given us something we didn't deserve, an opportunity to do better, and we're going to take it. He outlines the 6 conditions Samuel proposed. He announces the timeline for implementation. He invites community oversight and accountability. And then he does something unprecedented. He turns to Samuel and invites him to speak. Samuel steps to the podium. The cameras flash. The reporters lean forward. I'm 73 years old. I've been a black man in America for 73 years. What happened to me at the Golden Crest was not unique. It was not shocking to me, personally, because versions of it have happened dozens of times throughout my life. What was unique, what is shocking, is this moment right now. He pauses, looking out at the crowd. Change is hard. Real change, not performative statements or symbolic gestures, but actual structural change requires discomfort. It requires admitting fault. It requires sustained effort even when the cameras are gone and the headlines have moved on. The Golden Crest has committed to doing that work, and I'm going to hold them accountable. But I'm also going to support them, because accountability without support is just punishment, and punishment alone never healed anything. The impact of those words will ripple far beyond one restaurant. But the real test comes 3 weeks later, 21 days after the incident. The Golden Crest hosts its first community dinner. The doors open at 6 p.m., and there's no charge, no dress code, no judgment, just food, tables, and welcome. Samuel arrives at 6:15 with Aisha, his 2 sons, his 4 grandchildren, and 6 friends from his decades in law. They're seated at a long table by the window, the same window where he was turned away. Madison is not working. Tonight she's attending community college classes on social justice, using Samuel's check to pay tuition, but she sent a note that's framed and placed at the entrance. I'm learning, I'm changing, I'm sorry, and I'm grateful for the chance to do better. The restaurant is full. Families from the neighborhood, community organizers, the journalist Patricia Ellison, Mrs. Patterson in her pearls sitting beside a group of college students, black and white and brown faces, young and old, wealthy and working class, the staff newly trained, newly aware, newly committed, serves everyone with the same care, the same respect, the same dignity. And at 7:30 p.m., Robert Callahan steps to the center of the dining room and raises a glass to Judge Hayes for teaching us that justice isn't about punishment, it's about transformation. The room erupts in applause. Samuel stands, acknowledges the recognition with a small nod, and then raises his own glass. To everyone who believes people can change, to everyone who does the hard work of looking at themselves honestly, and to the next generation, may you inherit a world that sees worth in every human being, regardless of what they're wearing or what they look like. Glasses clinked. Conversations resume. Laughter fills the space where, 3 weeks ago, there was only silence and shame. And in this moment, something rare happens. Real change, visible and tangible. Sitting at tables and breaking bread together, 6 months later, the Golden Crest is thriving again. Not because people forgot what happened, but because they watched what happened next. The restaurant's transformation became a case study in corporate accountability. Other businesses adopted similar policies. The scholarship fund launched its first cohort of recipients. And Madison Pierce, she finished her community college courses. She got a job at a nonprofit focused on youth mentorship. She still thinks about that. Day still carries the shame of it, but she's channeling it into action. She speaks at workshops about implicit bias, sharing her story as a cautionary tale and a redemption arc. One afternoon, she sees Samuel at a community event. Their eyes meet across the room. She approaches hesitantly. "Judge Hayes, I wanted to thank you again for the chance, for believing I could do better. You're doing the work. That's what matters. Can I ask you something? Why did you help me? After what I did, you could have just destroyed me, let the internet do its thing, but you didn't." "What?" Samuel considers the question, his weathered face thoughtful. "Because I've spent my whole life fighting systems, not people. Systems are built by people, and they're changed by people. If we just destroy everyone who makes a mistake, we never change the system. We just create fear. And fear doesn't teach anything except how to hide better." Madison nods, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that grace." "You don't have to deserve it. You just have to pass it forward." The story of Samuel Hayes and the Golden Crest restaurant isn't really about one incident of discrimination. It's about how we respond when we're confronted with our own biases. It's about whether we choose punishment or transformation, destruction or growth. Samuel Hayes could have used his power, and make no mistake, a federal judge has significant power to obliterate the restaurant, to make an example of Madison, to extract revenge for a lifetime of similar indignities. Instead, he used that power to create something better, not by ignoring what happened, but by addressing it head, not by letting people off the hook, but by holding them accountable to become better. That's the lesson here. Not that discrimination is forgivable, it's not. Not that the burden should be on victims to educate their oppressors, it shouldn't. But that when we have the chance to create real change, we have a responsibility to try. The cream-colored envelope Samuel left on that table didn't just contain money, it contained a challenge. Who will you become with the knowledge of what you've done? It's a question we all need to answer. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who's experienced discrimination. Share it with someone who's learning to recognize their biases. Share it with someone who believes people can change. Because stories like this, stories of accountability and transformation, are how we build the world we want to live in. One conversation, one choice, one envelope at a time.